Hi guys, today we are going to go over portrait drawing. We are going to start with our paper to the side landscape orientation, just like this. You're going to take your pencil and you're just going to divide your paper down the center. Okay, and we're going to write first try over here. Okay, and then we'll have demo on this side. Okay, now on this side over here, I want you to take about 5 minutes to draw a picture of a person from the shoulders up. So think about how a yearbook photo or a school picture is. They always show you kind of from your shoulders up to concentrate on your face. That's what we're going to draw here for our portrait. Okay, we want to make sure it's a decent size on our paper. We're going to take about 5 minutes. Just draw. It can be male or female. You can think about just a random person that you're drawing, or if you want to base this off of yourself, it's up to you. But you're drawing a person here with the knowledge that you already have. Okay, so I'm going to do the same. I'll see you in about 5 minutes. Okay, chances are your person probably looked like one of these two people or something similar, right? So that might be how the nose is. It might be similarities between like the hair that I drew on my person and the person's hair in your picture. It might be like the eye shape, the mouth shape. It might be how you drew the neck or the shoulders. Okay, but there's probably some similarities there. Okay, now this is a very common style that we see in students who are moving from elementary up to middle school. And we actually want to kind of move away from this, okay, because this does look a little bit more elementary. And remember, we want to practice looking a little bit more advanced, a little bit more realistic, okay? If you recall, the Renaissance was all about moving towards a more realistic looking drawing or painting. Okay, so that's what we're going to be doing here. So if you will scoot over to your demo page, we are going to start off with drawing an upside down egg shape. Okay, so the widest part of the egg shape is going to be the top, and the smallest part is going to be down here, kind of for like the chin area. Now, I will say I have taught this for 5 years, and I don't know what it is, but every time I draw my egg shape, it never comes out right the first time. So if yours doesn't come out right either, that's okay. A key thing to remember before you get started, though, is to draw lightly. Draw very lightly so that you can erase any mistakes that you make while you are working on this. Okay, I'm going to draw lightly because I know for a fact that my egg never comes out right. So I'm going to draw kind of a wider top here. Okay, and it's going to come down here kind of towards the middle. Okay, so it's a little thinner down here. Focus this a little bit. Okay, and it's a little bit, I think it's a little bit too wide up here for me. So I'm going to take this in a little bit, I think. Make it a little more slender. And this side looks kind of pointy. It looks more like a guitar pick. So I'm going to bring this down here, and then I'm just going to erase the excess on this side. Okay, if you made yours too skinny, right, or maybe if you made it more of like an oblong kind of oval shape, and you need to change it so that the top is a little wider and the bottom's a little smaller, you can do that. Okay, so I'm feeling pretty decent about this. Not too bad, right? So this is my upside down egg shape. And I'm going to go ahead and scoot us a little bit closer here. There we go. Focus in. Okay, now the first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to grid my face by dividing it in the middle here, just straight down the middle, because our person is going to be facing forward. Okay, then I'm going to turn my paper to the side, okay, just like this. And I'm going to go from the chin to the top of the head here with my fingers. I'm going to meet in the very, whoa, that was not right. Let's meet in the very middle. And then I'm going to draw a line going straight across here, just like that. Okay, so I've divided my person's face into 4 quadrants at this point. Okay, I'm going to do the same thing from my line that I just drew in the chin, and I'm going to meet in the middle here. and I'm going to draw another line going all the way across my face. And I'm kind of rounding it out here just a little bit like this because a person's face is round, right? It's essentially, it is kind of like an egg shape. Okay, and then from this last line that I drew in the chin, I'm going to meet in the middle again. And this time I'm going to move up just a tiny, tiny bit. And this line is not going to go all the way across. Okay, so I have gridded my person's face here. And to be totally honest, when I was in middle school and high school, I thought it was really lame if you used grid lines. I was like, psh, those posers. I was very critical, and my people always looked really silly. Like they don't look very good at all. They definitely look more like this side than what this is going to look like when we're finished. And so, of course, I feel really foolish about that now. But don't be that person. Always use your grid lines. Always make sure you are measuring between the two. Don't just guesstimate, okay? Because sometimes you might be a little bit off, okay? So our top line here is our eye line. The second line is our nose line, and then this bottom line here is where your mouth is going to go, okay? A lot of times when people see this, they say, oh my gosh, that is a huge forehead, okay? And technically that's true, but we'll cover that here in just a little bit, literally. So we're gonna start here, and I'm gonna make some dots in the center of my space here, maybe a little bit closer. Okay, and it's going to turn into a robotic looking thing that looks like he's seen some stuff. Okay, so I'm going to draw these in here first, right? So he looks like he's seen too many things in his life, right? Okay, and we're going to kind of soften this. So one of the things that people don't necessarily realize is that if you're looking at a picture of somebody or you're looking at somebody in real life, usually when you're seeing their eyes, the only lines that you really see is their upper lid and their outer corner, right? So usually I draw this kind of along the lines of this, and I make a little corner here like this. Okay, I'm going to do the same thing on this side. So the top part, so my circle went directly on the line. The top part of my eye line here goes above, and then the bottom part comes under this line here. Okay, so usually this area right here on a person's face looks much lighter. These areas are darker just partially because of how the light hits the shadows, but also because you have eyelashes. Okay, so they kind of help line your eyes naturally. Okay, and it's okay if they're not 100% the same. We're doing just a practice one here, but nobody's eyes are exactly the same. Nobody is perfectly symmetrical. Okay, so we have our eyes here, and I think I'm going to bring this in just a tiny bit more. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to work on the nose. Okay, now the nose is going to start on this line here, and I'm going to make a parenthesis shape like this. Okay, so it's kind of like a really flat U or a parenthesis that's on its side. Okay, from this little shape right here, I'm going to add on a small kind of oval shape here, just like that. And then I'm going to add some parentheses to the outside portion to show the outer part of the nostrils. Okay, now noses are one of the most challenging parts of drawing the face. It's actually one of my favorite parts for some weird reason. I don't know. I think that noses are so different all the time, always. And I always like to, I don't know, but back in the good old days when we could look at people's full faces because they didn't have to wear a mask, I would meet people and I would be like, wow, I would always look at their nose and think, okay, how would I sketch that? Just because I'm weird. I don't know, guys. If you become an art teacher, you'll have like the same thing. Okay, I think it's just part of it. Okay, and then so I'm going to extend part of this up. So for example, depending upon the person's nose, I might have a more defined line here that kind of comes up this way, and this one might kind of show up here. We don't want to have anything super liney because the nose is just based on shadows. I'm going to kind of erase my guideline here just so you can see a little bit better, like so, right? And then usually we have kind of like this little space here between the eyes, and I feel like this eye is way too far over. I'm going to fix that really quick. It's going to bug me. Just going to move it over. make some quick changes. So it's okay if you if you weren't like super amazed with your first set of eyes too, that's fine. That's better. Okay, now I'm going to, it looks a little bit fuzzy because I erased, but that's okay. Now I'm going to go ahead and show you a quick instant replay, a little bit bigger and not on the face of my person so that you can see it a little bit more easily. Okay, so again, for the nose, if you're going to start off with a kind of a parenthesis shape. Okay, sometimes, and this is like it's kind of the bottom part of your, like the tip of your nose and almost like kind of where your septum is, right? So that's the part that divides your nostrils, okay? Sometimes people have a shape that looks more like this, a little bit more of a U shape than this one, okay? Regardless though, we extend this just a little bit and we're gonna add a shape that kind of reminds me of like the end of a Q-tip, like this. Okay, it's almost like if you took a Q-tip and kind of bent it. And then you can shade that in kind of lightly. Okay, on this one, it might kind of come up like this, right? And sometimes how you see a person's nostrils is based on your perspective, right? So if you're looking at them head on, depending upon how their nose looks, their nostrils might be more visible or less visible. So sometimes these shapes are really, really small and sometimes they're a little bit bigger. Okay, sometimes if you end up drawing a lot of noses in the future, you will also notice that the nostrils might have slightly different shapes to them, right? So one might seem like it's a little bit longer, one might seem like it's rounder, and that is totally normal on people's noses. Okay, the next thing is you're going to add the outer part of the nostrils, right? So it's going to be kind of like a parenthesis shape like this, right? So some people have like slightly wider noses. Some people have like noses that stick out a little bit further. Like there's a bunch of different shapes for noses here, right? So I'm going to bring in this here. And again, on this part too, if you're drawing somebody, you might notice that the space here is much thinner, or it might be a little bit wider. And again, that's because everybody's nose is different. It has different variations to it that make them unique. And I think that's why I like looking at or thinking about how I would draw somebody's nose. I don't know, just weird art teacher things. Okay, now a lot of times, especially on a nose that might stick out just a little bit further, right? Because sometimes we have noses that come out of our face a little bit further. Some people have noses that are a little bit like softer or like a little bit flatter looking, right? But we're going to have kind of a shape here sometimes, depends on how the lighting is. And this might show where the bridge of the nose is. And we might still have some kind of shading up here. Okay. So it might be something along the lines of this. Sometimes this comes all the way here. Okay. Sometimes it's a little bit wider. Okay. So example, like this one here might kind of come up this way. Right. So we might have a little bit more going on here like this. Okay. And maybe this person's nose goes this way, right? So I'm not looking at any pictures, I'm just making up noses. Weird things, right? Right, and so maybe this person's nose comes a little bit under here a little bit more, right? Sometimes they do like that. Sometimes they come down here a little bit more like this. It really just depends on the person. I feel like without a face, they kind of look like weird aliens. And then sometimes too, you can see like the upper lip part, you know, that little crease that you have kind of above your lips, right? So you might have part of this kind of sketched in there. Okay, so that's an up close version of this person. Okay, so I have the nose drawn here, and I'm going to work on the lips now. Now, this line serves as basically the opening to my mouth. So I'm going to have a lip above it and a lip below it. I want to make sure that my lips are not crazy wide. Okay, it's really easy to exaggerate lips so that they look more like a Bratz doll. Okay, but that's not really what we're going for. We want something a little bit more relaxed, right? So it's a little thinner, a little less obvious, right? And then we have this kind of shape down here. Okay, so it kind of is a very flat M on top, kind of like this, but a little bit flatter like that. Okay, and the bottom is kind of the same shape. So it'll come down here, you'll have a little, whoops, you'll have a little bit of an up like this, and then you'll have that division in the middle. Okay, so now we're going to go ahead and add on some eyebrows. We'll talk about ears, and then we'll talk about the hair. Okay, so just to start off with, because we're kind of making a generic person, we want to just kind of base the eyebrows kind of off of the eye shape here to give somebody, or to give our person a more relaxed look. Okay, so you don't want them to be like super high eyebrows. Okay, so I just kind of follow the general shape of my eye that I already have here, okay, and it makes it look a little bit more of a natural eyebrow, right, with a little bit of flare out at the end there, okay, and now I'm going to go ahead and add on some ears and some hair up here. Okay, so I'm going to, when you draw your ears, the cool thing about the eye and nose line is it tells you where your ears should go. So the top of the ears will go here, okay, and usually you kind of start a little bit below, so you can kind of come up almost like you're drawing a half of a heart, okay, and we don't want them to stick out super far because this is the front view of our person's face. I'm going to start a little bit below the eye line, so I can come up here a little and draw that there. Okay, and again, if you're drawing a specific person, their ears might be shaped slightly different, like it might flare out a little bit. Maybe they have ears that stick out a little bit further, right? Maybe they're even harder to see, right? They might be even flatter compared to the head. Maybe you can hardly see them at all, depending upon the hair. Okay, now for my person, I'm going to go ahead and draw this just based on my own hair, just because, I don't know, just because. So what I'm going to do is I have a side part, right? And so if I want my person to have a side part, I'm thinking about their part is going to come over here, right? So this is how they divide their hair up. Now, a lot of you guys might be adding hair on top of it like this, but if you do so, that makes you look like you have a receding hairline, right? If you put your hand on top of your head, directly on top, not touching your forehead, okay, you'll notice that you still have hair in front of your hand. Okay, that's the same thing here. It's like if you were putting your hand up here, right? Say this is your hand, right? If you're putting your hand up here, you're still going to have hair that goes below here. Okay, so we are going to draw a line and we're going to start kind of adding our hairline here, okay, because that's an important part of somebody's look. Okay, so I'm going to draw this line going this way. Okay, and then maybe my person's hair kind of comes across this way, like this, and maybe it looks similar to this side here. So maybe it comes over here and then it kind of starts hanging down this way. Okay, and people have a large variety of hairlines. Okay, then I'm going to add a little bit of hair from my part. I'm going to add a little bit of hair on top. Now, I don't want to get super crazy with it because it'll give me some Dolly Parton hair. And I'm drawing this based on my own hairs, and I don't have Dolly Parton hair, unfortunately. So I'm going to bring this down here. Okay, again, I don't want to jut it out to the side because that's not how my hair lays. So I'm going to kind of bring this down here this way. Okay, I'm going to do the same thing over here. And I'm just adding a little bit on top, and notice this little space right here, that kind of helps show where your part is. So I'm just going a little bit over my head. The reason why I want to go over my head just a little bit is because if you think about the first lines that we drew, that's like your skull, right? Like that's like your skin and bones, okay? And your hair sits on top of that. So we want to actually draw some hair sitting on top of that, right? And so maybe it kind of flares out down this way. Okay, now I'm going to draw the neck of my person. Now, if you are touching right here on your body, right, if you put your hands there, you'll notice that your neck goes all the way up here. Okay, so I'm not going to draw all the way up here because that would make me look like I have a very muscular neck, because usually if you're looking at somebody from the front, we know our neck attaches to our head up here, but we don't usually see it. It's usually down here just a little bit more, kind of like this, because our muscles and our bone structure follows along behind our jawline usually. right? There are always some differences, but just the baseline average person. Okay, so I have my neck drawn in here. It's not super tiny like this one. Okay, but I have my neck drawn in here, and then maybe I can draw the shirt that my person's wearing. I feel like this is still a little bit wide. I'll bring this in just a tiny bit more. There we go. Okay, and then we have that nice little flare there. Okay, and then I also want you to think about your shoulders on your own body. And so what you can do is you can put your hands on the side of your head here, okay, and then touch the tips of your shoulders, right? So like if you think about the song when you were a kid, head, shoulders, knees, and toes, if you go head, shoulders, right, you're gonna notice that your arms kind of come out at a diagonal. They don't go directly down, right? They don't go inward, okay? So we wanna make sure that our shoulders on our person come out further than our head shape does, right? So they'll probably come out a little bit further like this, right? We want to have a good head on our shoulders. Okay, but we don't want to come out so far that we look like a football player who is like totally ready to go in their pads and helmet and everything like that. Okay, and then I can put in my person's torso, right? Maybe their arm kind of goes out this way. Who knows, right? So something along the lines of this. Right, and I definitely did more than shoulders, but our shoulders go past our head here. And then you can draw, you know, maybe you have a little bit of overlap. Maybe you have like your hair, maybe it is behind this ear here, but you still have a little bit of hair that kind of comes in front. Like so. And then maybe this one, maybe you can't see your ear on this side, and maybe it comes all the way over. Okay, so maybe the hair kind of comes forward like this and covers up part of this face here, right? And I know I have hair back here, so this isn't just space, right? This would be shaded in too if we were shading this in, right? But maybe I have like a lock of hair or a portion of it that kind of comes forward like this. Okay, and then you can go through and erase your pencil lines. Just like this, your grid lines here to kind of get rid of those. And that is how you draw a more realistic person. Okay, now I know this is our first practice. Okay, so whoops, don't fret if yours doesn't look like the most amazing human ever, because guess what? If you compare it to your first person, it looks a lot better, right? So much better. Okay, so that is our first step.